So to bring something in while the car is still running.
Right.
Well, now's a good time. Introduce yourself, who everybody is, because who the original members of the band is, how everything gets started.
I was going to say, we were doing good. We're rolling. So
Let's take it back.
Yeah.
I'm Noah Waller. I'm the bass player for the band. Jeremy and I started working on this in 2011.
I'm Sean Widener, the drummer, and I came into the band, what was it, 2013?
Yeah, 2013.
Yeah, and actually, Jeremy and I had the same thing, because the first album, I was relatively new with all the material, and I was learning some of the songs as I was recording them, so I know how Jose probably felt in that
You got the
situation.
mental jiu-jitsu, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
You were the new guy then.
My name is Jeremy Scott. I'm the guitar player for the Seraphonics and very occasionally backing vocalist, very happily. I do a lot of the writing with Noah, and we work together.
And I am Jose Luis Samador.
Hey.
I am the token Hispanic in the group. I joined about a year ago, and yeah, it was the Dark Horizon line was a lot of mental jiu-jitsu. But, back to that point, what I wanted to reach at is he was talking, are you in front of the beat or behind the beat? And I can see this sitting outside and looking at you three. They've played the music, and they've been working it for so long that they know exactly everything about it, but the specific stickler points that, we'll sit and we'll play a song that we know back and forth, and we hadn't played it in a few weeks, and then Jeremy would be like, I don't like it right now, and everybody else is like, oh, there's nothing wrong with it, and there's just something that he's hearing that nobody else is, and that's what he was getting at. It's because, yes, I understand the realm of what you're talking about, but there's something specific that I don't hear. So he understood after lots of back and forth, he understood that he had to show me what I am doing and then show me what he's doing. So he got it pretty well. He'd be like, get your guitar. This is what you are doing. Ding, 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 ding. And I'd have to follow him. Ding, 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 ding. And then he'd go, this is what I want you to do. And I'd be like,
Now
okay.
I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I did. And I am not a horrible person. But I think that there are two parts, and we might be getting sort of into the nitty-gritty of the recording process, which is kind of
Which
an
is good.
interesting.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's just what we want to do, because I think it's good to hear, because whatever you guys are going through, I think a lot of bands out there probably have that moment, and I think that you just gave what I saw as a good thing, where you were very honest and clean when you said, this is what's going to happen, instead of it just happening, and then you're like side-blinded by like, this is what I'm going to expect from you, this is what you know what I mean?
And if you don't mind, I'll go into it, because going back to the genesis of the band, Jeremy and I came together, from a couple jam sessions and deciding that we were going to pursue this, with some caveats and some forewarning from Jeremy that we touched on at the beginning, where it was almost with each step of this band, that same disclaimer and has to be given to
Clear
each.
communication.
And
that's what it is.
Understanding that there's a difference between guys playing around on the weekend who are going to go out and play a few shows and have some beers and hang out with your friends, or if you wanted to create successful, personal, and powerful music,
Right,
and
something that means something to you,
right? And to then hopefully that it means so much to you that and maybe a couple people could even
and it will, right?
catch on to that.
It has to. I feel I always tell it has to. Like if you put that much of yourself into something, it has to click with someone else. It just there's too many of us not to.
I couldn't agree with you more. And we discussed this a little bit in the room before the podcast, but I very much was concerned with the idea when Noah said, do you want to play in a group again? I had been happy playing by myself. I had my guitar. I was playing blues. I was kind of like living my life. And I was like, music is done for me. Like I did that when I was in my 20s.
Mm-hmm.
I did that when I was, when I was in my late 20s. I gave up school for many, many years to play in a band. And I said, that part of my life is over. I'm done. I don't want to do it anymore. And when Noah came back to me and he said, listen, I'd really like to play with you. We had a lot of fun jamming in the living room, and I think that you'd be a good addition to my band. And I said, listen, I got to warn you.
Band of one.
My enterprise.
Exactly. And I said, listen, I'm going to give you a warning right now. I do not do that halfway. Like, it's very, very serious for me, and I want to be in a good band, because there is no worse feeling in the world, in my opinion, than being on a band and being on stage and you know you're not that good.
Right.
And that's like you look around and you're like, the people are just okay. The band is just okay. The audience is hearing it, but they're not really like reacting to it or anything. And I was like, look, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to put myself into this, I really, really want it to be something that's important to me. Right. And I don't know if anybody else likes it. I'm okay with nobody else. When I say be good, I'm not saying like
that you feel good, about it, that you would be listening to it. Is that what like?
Or like I would even say in the reverse. Like the only kind of good that I care about is good like in my heart.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. No.
You know
100%.
You must have connected with people out there because we were introduced to you through Garage to Nowhere when they put up the contest to see people had to come in and they had to vote for who they wanted the band to sit in our podcast. And you guys had
everybody.
a lot
we had
people that had voted in.
We had tons of
it's
people
overwhelming.
come on there.
How much did we pay to get all those votes? I'm trying to remember.
We'll talk about that later because
The funny thing, I was out of the country at the time. I was on a Caribbean cruise, and I think I was in I think it was St. Martin, or it was one of the Caribbean islands with like a U.S. territory, because I finally got the my phone back up so I can like see stuff. And he's like, "You got to get people doing this. Go now." I'm like, I have a drink in my hand. I am chilling on an island. He's like, "No, we got to do it." So that's like on the way to our excursion and back. I'm like on my phone the whole time. Let's go. You got to do this. You got to do that. You got to get on there right now. So
that's awesome.
He was really on top of us.
That's
that.
good. Yeah.
Just to be clear, like Sean is out there living his best life.
Yeah.
Sean is the guy who
just living my best life.
Right, exactly. Sean is the guy who's always taking trips. You know, he loves taking his trips with his daughter and his wife, awesome. And he takes awesome vacations and stuff like that. So I often catch him at those times. It's not right.
It's gonna be hard not to
it's
catch
on
him.
you for checking your phone on vacation.
Yeah,
so
that's true. You should leave it at home. There you go.
In Sean's defense, Kay is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With Jeremy, what we have sometimes is an incredible amount of talent and intensity. And sometimes that intensity, when it's focused at you, is sort of like, oh, crap. Okay, I got to act on this immediately.
Right.
And that takes sometimes a little getting used to, but I think the results end up speaking for themselves to that.
Right.
These songs are amazing. And as much as we all contribute to it, he's the fuel that lights the fire.
Right.
And that kicks all of our ass to say, hey, let's not just half-ass this. Let's not just put something out there that's fine. Let's do something that's great.
and you're learning as a musician how to be better at what you're doing.
It challenges us.
Yeah.
And
I just want to say one thing about that is when you play with someone for a while, you start to kind of understand what they are as a musician. And I'm just sort of going through this process. I'm probably in the middle of this process when it comes to Jose. But I understand Noah very, very well as a musician. And I understand Sean very, very well as a musician. So what I try to do is I try to write songs that put them in positions to do the things that they do the best that they can do them. So
yeah,
you
that's
just
fantastic. Yeah.
drink
yeah,
beer.
you just
No, yeah.
You just create a frame and you say, listen, what Noah likes to do is he has this very the best comparison I can do is a guy named Geezer Butler. He's the bass player for a band named Black Sabbath. And Geezer is a
Jose,
noodler.
so this is band Black Sabbath.
This little known band.
Exactly. Jose's like, I've never heard of them.
Back to he's in the middle of it. Jeremy's in the middle of understanding me because I've had an eclectic growing up of music. Like, the first time I heard the Beatles was a salsa version of it while I was a dance instructor. And I was like, man. And he played that song. I was like, hey, wait, I know this song. I know this song, but it's like, hey, Jude. I'm like, yeah. So
That's awesome.
Yeah, so just sort of going back to what I was saying about Noah, though, is when you understand them about him and when you say, okay, here's what Noah wants to do. And I use the word noodle in the best possible sense of noodle. But Noah likes to noodle. He likes to play. He likes to fit in between things. He likes to go underneath things and then on top of things. He likes to sometimes play the melody. He likes to sometimes play the rhythm. When I'm writing songs, I'm like, oh, would this be a fun thing for Noah to play around with?
Cool.
So I'll create like a little arpeggiation, and it'll change keys from major to minor, maybe halfway through, and I'll say, hey, Noah, here's something substantial for you. It's like a jungle gym.
Right.
You can climb all over it. You can
So do you come up with a bass line basic and then you kind of fill it in, or do you just grab it and say, all right, I'm going to put a bass line on top of what you're doing?
We kind of have hit that from every direction possible.
Yeah.
And we will I will use the say massage, but that sounds too gentle for the way that we actually come at it with crowbars and steel pipes.
Yeah.
But it gets a little medieval. But
Right.
he will write a bass line, and sometimes I'll have to push back on that. But then I'll write a bass line, and he wants to do something different with it. So we try not to get too personal with exactly how things come out. So we'll both try to now, as we've learned to work together, come with things par-baked. It's like it's ready to go, but let's if we need to cut this up a little bit and take.
That takes a lot to be able to step back and say, "Let me hear what you have to say."
Much harder on me than on him. He is brilliant at it.
Yeah,
he's a
that's
surgeon with it,
thing.
and he will rearrange
That's a tough
pieces.
thing. It's
I'll
like-
come in there with here. This is my heart on paper, and he'll be like,
it's-
"Okay, here, let's
let
tear
me-
all this
yeah.
out."
Well,
But it's to the better.
Right. Because, like you said,
Right.
if we tear it out, but here's the heart of it,
Right.
and
results speak.
Right. Let me look at that, and
Right.
this is what I see, and you'll be able to see. Oh, you know what? That does add, or that
And
does
it ends up
change
working
it.
in bidirectional. Where it's like,
Exactly.
where he'll want to bring something. He's like, hey, but hold on, you're missing what I think
Right.
is one of the brilliant parts of this is how small this gets or how big this gets, and not losing that momentum. We're not,
Right.
cutting away from it too abruptly.
Right.
But it's a process.
And in the Seraphonics, Noah and I like to exchange this word a lot, and Sean and Jose have heard it a couple times, but it's specifically between the two of us, is the word precious. And you get sort of precious about your parts. So, and
little
what I
golemish.
find, right, preciousness is like, listen, I love this. I don't ever want it to change. I
Right.
don't feel comfortable with anything you do with that. And preciousness can be the enemy of art.
Yeah.
It can be the enemy of coming up with a good song. When you're able to have a bass line and say, hey, you know what? We've got an idea that's so good, we kind of need to jettison that. And we need to
Right.
put it back in the toy box and maybe bring it up in the future because it's not working.
Right.
And sometimes these songs will go through so many different variations that by the time you get to the end, it resembles nothing what you had at the
Right.
beginning. But you weren't precious about it, so you were able to allow it to evolve.
Right.
As you played it
Allow it
live.
to
For our
grow.
songs happens more often than not.
Yeah, which is
And, as I said before, I came into this album pretty much when it was done. And I had to learn it and sing it at the same time. What's cool about that is that Jeremy has every copy of that iteration and has showed them to me. So you're hearing
wow.
Faithfully for the first time and had this weird it was Faithfully, and and you're like, yeah, that doesn't sound anything like the refined version that we have, right? You see, they're not explaining exactly because they'll go back and forth. There was another song that didn't make the cut that me and Jeremy messed with a little bit because they had messed with it before, but he really liked this riff and he wanted to work it in, but
Oh, yeah, it's this Thralls. Yeah, there are a couple songs, and I played the iterations. They did not make it to the album, and Jose is absolutely in love with them. Jose is like, we need to do that song right now. We need to re-record that song. We need to start over. We need to get this song in the album because it's bullshit that it's not on the album. Jose got super duper excited because they're very vocal based songs, and they're stuff that he feels like he can bite into.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So as a guitar player, I'm looking at the songs and saying, well, guitar-wise, they're just okay. Bass-wise, they require a lot of Noah. Drum-wise, they're kind of non-existent because they're very ballady. But Jose is all over it. And Jose's like, we need to do this. This is very important to me that we get these songs done. And we're going to get them done.
It's also interesting because in the process of this album in particular, the songwriting and development process, aside from that, integrating a new member into the band who is a core member very quickly, he hit the ground running, jumped in the car as it was driving. But the process of building it turned into something in which became very personal for us. So as we talk about things being precious, sometimes, 2 lines of a song of lyrics or a particular melody, get really tied to personal things.
Right.
In the course of writing this album, Jeremy went through a marriage and a divorce. Sean became a father, and I lost my father. And so there become some real moments there that kind of
There's
hit
a
you
lot
where
of
you're
it,
just like, I
right.
remember right where I was when these 2 lines came out, or I remember what we were going through as the stuff was put together. And
Right.
that stuff where sometimes the holding on to it means more than you think it is, and
Right.
you don't even realize you're doing it. But then also you kind of want to say, hey, hold on. Let's plant this in the ground and let it grow on its own
Right.
and see
How
what
can
comes
we
out of it.
maintain this thing and not encompass it, put walls around it, and
Precisely.
but let it be something else at one point or another. Like you were saying, it might be something that we take and we make it grow in a different way.
If you don't mind me asking, in the album that's coming out. There's a song called "We'll